Oh my god, welcome to our episode of The Swamp this week. The Swamp is an acronym.
Stands for some whack-ass movie podcasting.
My name is Dara. What's yours?
I'm Emily.
Oh my god, so nice to meet you.
Amazing. Outstanding. It's not like we've been doing this podcast for exactly 2 years at this point.
2 years to this day, actually, so happy Swampiversary.
Happy Swampiversary.
To you, Emily, who I've known far longer than 2 years, but to all our lovely listeners who, if this is your first time, welcome. If you've been 2 years strong, fucking love you. Anyone who has ever taken even more than a minute to listen to our show, I cannot believe it. It's amazing. You are all besties. This is a group of besties, and you're all so great. And everyone who interacts with any of our content ever, I just find to be so lovely and endearing. And we just want to start off this episode by saying thank you for listening, for participating, for just any of it. For every single person who's ever DM'd us, sent us a request, participated in any of our stupid polls. It's just awesome. And yeah, we're happy to be here. We're happy that you're here. Mm-hmm. And we're going to kick off Freaky February. And I know what you're thinking. Freaky February. There's an obvious movie choice here. And I'm going to be honest with you that we tried. We tried to watch Freaky Friday starring Jamie Lee Curtis, and all of our notes were like, Jamie Lee Curtis is so fuckable, and that's it.
That was the entire movie. I didn't have any other notes. Like, what was I supposed to say?
And we're, like, hot off of Disney December as well, so we kind of already did some, like, flat-level decom level content, and I just am not ready to, like, try to stretch an hour movie into an hour podcast again. It's kind of hard.
No, so instead we pivoted from mother-daughter fighting to domestic disputes.
From mother-daughter to mother.
To mother.
Which I had never seen this movie in my life, and you had always like referenced it as something that you enjoyed, a Jennifer Lawrence performance that you really like, and I just kind of brushed it off because I think I had some preconceived notions about this movie that I was not ready to like overcome until you were like, let's just do it. And I was like, okay, if you like, if you like it this much, I trust your judgment because we have similar tastes, to, I would say our Venn diagram overlaps like 80% of the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty good, for two people. I don't think I overlap that much with too many other people in this world. But I was like, okay, if Emily likes it this much, and you said it fit for Freaky February, so we're going to try to define just freaky as just like a umbrella term. Freaky can really mean anything, whether it be like horror or like horny or just any, we're being loose with it. We're playing fast and loose as we do here on The Swamp.
This one definitely falls under the category of maybe not horror, but just like so purely unsettling.
I would call this a horror movie, or I think people will try to like divide the wedge between what is horror and what is psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And I've seen some places like try to say suspense is its own category, and I don't know, like I don't think I know enough to really say, but I don't think suspense is a movie genre. I think suspense is an element that your film can have or not have, but a whole movie cannot be based on suspense. It's either like horror with suspense, or like a drama can have suspense, even a romance can have suspense. I just don't think like suspense as its own like word is a movie genre.
It doesn't work for me. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe somebody really smart could probably prove me wrong, but I would say that this is perhaps one of the most suspenseful films that I've ever seen, and I did really end up enjoying it. I'm glad you ended up, kind of pushing to show it to me, because I really don't think I would have ever watched this on my own, like, of my own volition before this, because I, like, had an idea of what I thought this movie was, and I was completely wrong.
Yeah, what did you think it was again? Is like Jennifer Lawrence was a homewrecker?
Yeah, so I was looking a little bit into, like, a lot of other people agree that the trailer, if you go and watch, like, there's, like, the trailer that they put that, like, has spoilers, but, like, whatever trailer they were showing in theaters in 2017 when this movie came out, whatever trailer I saw in the theater was so absent of what the plot of this movie actually is, which honestly I agree with. You don't want to spoil shit for this movie. This movie you do not want to know. Like, I think not knowing made my experience so much better, but I think them trying to be vague in their trailer kind of misguided maybe what the film was actually about, or even like the sense of it, because one trailer watch is all I had basically to base this off of, and my experience was that it was about Jennifer Lawrence is some sort of like otherworldly, omnipresent being. Maybe she's like a sireness, demoness woman figure, just like not a human, basically, and that she goes into this family to try to corrupt this like family structure and, you know, get with the dad, and like that's how she's gonna like, you know, gain power of some sort. Basically, I think, and I watched the trailer back, and that was not right. That was not at all like what that was giving, but it was not necessarily telling you what the movie was actually about. And I think the level of suspense, maybe I just always attribute like discomfort and suspensefulness when there's like a couple, an obvious couple, with like discomfort in a couple means like unhappiness and then infidelity, right? But when you see like a couple on screen and then it's like an established like, ooh, high suspense, you just think like, oh, like homewrecker or something, cheating.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I thought it was going to be some sort of like big cheating story.
Yeah, if we want to get into it, well, I mean, like, this is definitely one of those movies as well that you, if I like, it's one that you could watch like 2, maybe 3 times in like pretty quick succession, and you could still get a lot more from it. This was the first time I had watched it after like seeing it initially, so like for me, it felt like I was picking up a lot more because like, for it being like a pretty like slow start to the movie, there's a lot going on always. But essentially what it is, and I'm gonna break it down for everyone because like, also if you didn't have subtitles on for this movie, get fucked.
No, I was gonna say, I think you don't want the subtitles because I'm a subtitle girly, and I almost felt like not cheated, but like, and not spoiled either. But I think there have been a few instances in my life where like I watch everything with subtitles.
Yeah.
I want to know verbatim what everyone is saying at all times.
Yeah.
And this was one instance where it says characters' names or something, and I can't think of a specific instance, but I know it's happened before where like the subtitles kind of give away a little something, where it says a character's name or it says something that you're like, oh, I don't think I was supposed to know that. And for this, it was that a certain character is named him, capitalized HIM, and that's the character's name. And then slightly after, you were like, oh, do you know what this is referencing? Like, do you know what this story is trying to like, you know, do homage to or whatever? And I was like, I had no indicators up until that point other than that character was named him, and I'm like, oh, it must be the Bible.
Yeah, like
somebody named him, and that's what kind of clued me in. And I think I would have got it, but not nearly as quick as I had with those captions.
Yeah.
So I just think, I mean, obviously our podcast is spoiler full. If you have not watched the movie Mother, I don't think we've spoiled much up until this point, but don't listen to this if you care about spoilers. But I really did feel kind of cheated and spoiled by the captions. But then again, there's a lot of murmuring, a lot of, you know, muted talking that I am always a caption girly.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily regret it, but like, it was kind of annoying.
Yeah. But like, it's one of those things, like, definitely I could see where, because I kind of like gave you the heads up. I'm like, oh, this is where it's at, sort of. But like, it's one of those things, like, because I don't think I watched it with subtitles on like the first time or anything like that. Once you realize what the story is doing, because it basically, what it's doing is running its course through the Bible and like through, I mean, both the Old and the New Testament up until like Jesus is born, basically. And it goes through all of that.
Speed run.
Yes.
Speed running the Bible.
It speed ran the Bible. It basically kicks off.
Only the hits.
Yeah. Well, it basically kicks off with like Adam and Eve coming into. Okay. It starts off with Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence as this couple in this house, and he's a writer. He's a brilliant writer, has a lot of fans, a lot of followers, and she is sort of like his dutiful wife. And basically, what ends up happening is, oh god, what's the actor's name? Who plays Adam?
Ed Harris.
Yeah, Ed Harris comes barging in as Adam, and then Michelle Pfeiffer as Eve.
Slay.
And they basically wind up coming into their home and disrupting their entire lives. Cain and Abel come running in. Donald Gleason bludgeons his brother to death. And it all kind of like really quickly like goes downhill from there. Like people are sort of invading their home, and at a certain point Javier Bardem sort of quells that and everything like that. But his latest piece, which I'm assuming is the Old or the New Testament, comes out and is like published and everything like that, and like his like hordes of fans come showing up to his house, and Jennifer Lawrence is pregnant at this point, and their entire house just divulges into chaos and bloodshed, and Kristen Wiig is there with guns.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Which was the perfect casting for this movie, but it basically
for any movie.
The
most
Kristen Wiig a gun.
Put Kristen Wiig in the Bible and give her a gun, and she will execute those prisoners.
But it sort of like goes into like genocide and everything like that that's happened like from the Bible, and all of the how people had like taken on like priesthood and everything like that, and spreading the good Lord's word and all that shit. And it comes to a head when Jennifer Lawrence very unsettlingly has her baby, and is trying to protect him from Javier Bardem. Basically, she falls asleep, he snatches that baby right out of her arms, he sends it off to his followers, says, "Look at my pretty little baby," and they rip the baby apart. And then Jennifer Lawrence blows up the house.
Yeah, basically it seems like they like hold the baby up and don't support its head, so
its neck just fucking snaps
backwards. Which, yeah, like, big trigger warning. I was genuinely thinking about just like how this could be so upsetting if like I could see. So we'll get into like the critical reception of this movie in a little bit, but I could see how some people would maybe have taken that specific like choice and been like, absolutely no fucking way. Like
they just didn't have to show that part. Like, yeah.
But so the baby's neck literally snaps, and then they eat it. They eat, because it's supposed to be the body of Christ, right? So they eat the baby, and that's what sets Jennifer Lawrence off. And she's like, you killed and ate my baby. Like, that's fucking sick. And then she blows up the whole house, which is a metaphor for the world.
Because she's Mother Earth is essentially what it is.
Yeah, she is Mother. Their house is the planet, and she's like the keeper of the planet. He's God, which definitely took me a hot second to catch on to that with your like prompting, I think. And who's to say like
I don't want to spoil all of it, but yeah.
I think when anyone says, like you said, like, do you know what story this is retelling, basically, is the way you phrased it to me. And I think that it's like one of three options, is that it's a Bible thing, it's a Greek mythology thing, which those two can be like very closely, overlapping, or it's Shakespeare, right? Yeah. If you're doing a retelling of something, I always feel like it's one of those three. Yeah. So you said that, and I was like, Bible. Like, okay, of those three, like, it's the Bible. But yeah, I guess if we want to get into a little bit of like, that this movie did not do well.
No.
People did not like it.
I'm sure plenty of people walked out of that theater.
People hated it, genuinely. It got terrible ratings. I think it has like a 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Which is crazy.
Horrible critical score, just like overall. And I think the actual negative reception to the film is what drove Jennifer Lawrence and Darren Aronofsky's relationship. They were dating. And
were they?
Yeah, so they got together during this movie. And afterwards, when they were on the press tour for it, him having to defend the movie against people who hated it so much is kind of what drove them apart, because she felt like that was invading like their home life, basically. And she's like, him having to like fight against this movie, she's like, I just want it to be this piece of art that I put out into the world, and that's that. And he thinks he has to defend it. So he's like, when we're at home, she was, when we're at together alone, I don't want to think about Mother. I don't want to think about this movie I did. I just want to be a person. And he was like constantly thinking he had to put up these, as the director, you have to constantly be battling these criticisms,
which
and putting
I can
up
understand
these walls.
both sides. Absolutely. Like you
put your heart, sure. I mean, I'm sure it just like wasn't meant to be or whatever. But yeah, they dated in real life. Imagine being the lead actress in this movie, being like, I want to date the guy who wrote this. What?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is like, I think she took a long time. This is like around the time that she took a long time off of acting after this. And I think she's been like quoted saying like, yeah, it was the hardest role I've ever had to play. Like, which like, I know part of it was like, she was like, felt like Hollywood was sick of her. But like, yeah, I would need a hard break after this movie. I think as much as she deserved the Oscar for Silver Linings Playbook, I think her performance in this was incredible. Absolutely insane. Like, really pushed the bounds, like, in every direction, like, emotionally sort of thing. I feel like the map of that is just fully colored in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a thing that kind of divides you and I is that you're a Jennifer Lawrence stan,
Yes.
and I wouldn't categorize myself as a hater.
A skeptic. How about a skeptic?
I'm a skeptic. Well, I think that she's fine. I think she was good in the Hunger Games. I think that she's been good in stuff I've seen her in, but I don't understand the hype. I never associated her with like Oscar worthy or, the level of, oh, she's the next Meryl Streep. Like, no, I don't see that for her. I see that for Florence Pugh. I see that for, I just don't see that for Jennifer Lawrence, and especially like her acting career side. I just thought her like sort of persona in interviews of like, oh, I'm so relatable. We talked about this on our Hunger Games episode, but it just like wasn't really for me per se. But this is maybe really the first performance I've seen her in that I was like, yeah, maybe I kind of get it. She was obviously good in the Hunger Games, but that wasn't necessarily as like gripping and difficult as this. Being a pregnant woman trampled to the ground in your own home is a very acute emotion that I think is like, that's tough, especially obviously if you're not a person who's experienced that, you don't know what that is. And I think that she did a good job with it. I don't think there are a ton of actresses who could have done as good of a job of it as she did.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And let me tell you, if there's one thing that Jennifer Lawrence knows how to do, she always knows how to give a good scream on screen.
Scream.
She is a yeller.
Not just the birthing screams, but also like the terror screams. She was giving terror, and I think that was like the most horrific part of this movie was certainly when she's in the height of her pregnancy, and there's like her house basically in the third act of this movie. You said like this is one of the most crazy third acts a movie has ever had, and you were not joking. Her whole house, basically like dilapidates inward on itself and becomes like a refugee camp and a war zone and like a police state, and just everything basically supposed to represent, I think, like religious conflict, like global religious conflict is happening within her home. And she's pregnant and trying to navigate it, and she's like, getting trampled to the ground, getting pushed, getting not listened to. That's like really upsetting to watch. And I think that she was, that must have been fucking hard as an actress. And I don't know, just to like try to justify that performance, especially to something that was not being received well, being like, oh my God, I put so much into this role and people aren't appreciating it, probably because they thought it was like quote unquote too much.
I didn't think, like, it's crazy to me that, like, people really didn't like it, because I think this movie is brilliant. I mean, maybe not brilliant, but, like, I think it's a really great movie. I think it's insanely well done. I think it's pretty complex. I love, like I said, I feel like I have a lot of respect for movies that I feel like I can go back and, like, get, like, not just a piece out of, but, like, get, like, many pieces of it, like, stick with me after another rewatch. And like I said, this is only the second time I had seen it, but like which is wild. Yeah,
that's wild to me.
But this is the only the second time I'd seen it.
Yes, because you spoke so highly of it, and to me, the minute we finished watching it, I was like, damn, I want to go back and I want to start this over.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
I wanted to show this to people, especially the experience of like watching it with someone who's never watched it. It's one of those like you watching your friends watch the movie things.
I was doing that the entire time. One thing I really liked in like this watch, because like I remember watching that third act for the first time and being like really like overwhelmed that I didn't feel like I could get a lot out of it. But like watching it back like this time, I feel like I was like one of my favorite parts, because it is so hectic. I could not even imagine the coordination and the blocking and all of like the like so many steps and pieces of filming all of that must have been fucking insane. But like the way it jumps so quickly from commentary to commentary on like organized religion is like so fast, and I really liked that a lot. Like it kind of hit every point.
Which the thing, I looked at some low specifically Letterboxd. That's my movie review hub personally, which I try to always put our personal Letterboxd in the description below. It's I think both of us try to actively review movies we see, at least just with a star, but I always try to put a little comment in there, something. But I think it's one of the more fun social, if you want to call it a social media platform, just because it doesn't seem like you have to, like, I don't know, do anything or be performative. Also, I really like it as, like, a personal log.
Yeah.
And I like following other people, friends, stuff. So Letterboxd, if you don't have one and you're a movie person, I would highly recommend, because I always love having a direct log of, like, every movie I've, like, watched for the first time this year or something like that. Not sponsored, but go,
But if you want to.
But I was trying to look at some of the, like, lower level Letterboxd reviews on this, just to, like, get a sense of, like, maybe where a lot of the negative reception was coming from. And so many people were saying that it was, like, too obtuse. That, the metaphor they're doing is so obvious. They're so obviously doing this thing that it's not subtle enough. It's not giving any storyline other than what they're trying to emulate.
Why
I can kind of get. Why is that a bad thing?
Why does it owe you subtlety? Why does everything have to be fucking, like, that's one thing that I really hate, like, about, I think, like, this sort of specific brand of, like, movie people and, like the movie bros and all that shit. And, like, just, like, I think a lot of, like, really pretentious, like, people that, like, think very highly of themselves and, like, the way they view movies are very, like, it has to be subtle so that I can figure out the metaphors and I can figure it out. It's a puzzle. Like, I want to, like, take what I can from it, and I want to have to watch it 4 times to get it. Like, that, it doesn't have to be like that. Not every single fucking movie owes you, like, this really, like, small and, like, tiny little, like, metaphor that, like, you can latch onto and, like, deconstruct. Like, it can be bold and in your face. And that's, like, one of the things that, like, I like about movies. That's one thing that, like, people like about action movies. Like, you know what I mean? This did become an action movie in the last fucking 35 minutes.
That's actually such, like, an interesting and hot take that this does, like, become action-packed.
It is.
Because it does. Our protagonist happens to be a pregnant woman, and our setting happens to be, like, a religiously infected war zone. But, like, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way before, but yeah, for sure. The last half, or the last, third of this movie, it's a fucking action movie. She's fighting for her life.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. But yeah, I think so many of the negative reviews were basically saying that, like, the basically, like, the green, the pro-earth, environmentalist take was too heavy-handed, or that the religious aspect of it was too heavy-handed. Oh, we get it. I'm like, good for fucking you, because it took me a second. And when I ended it, I was like, I want to go back, because I was reading comments about, like, the stuff that I had missed, and I was asking you questions, because I was like, now that I get that it's doing a thing, I like to, like, find all the little, puzzle pieces, the little Easter eggs, right? Because, like, what that weird yellow powder she's drinking, what the fuck? It has to mean something.
Yeah.
Has to mean something. Her hair, I was also obsessed with her hair in this movie. I'm like, her hair has to be a symbol, because she has these, like, elaborate, almost like Instagram, like 2012 Instagram hair accounts. Do you remember those? Like, like
the
early day
bun.
Instagram. Yeah, the early day Instagram, like, hair tutorial accounts where it was like a 4-strand braid that goes into 2 messy buns that then latches back up into a Jesus cross. Like, what the fuck? But her hair in this movie was crazy, and I really could not find anything noting on, like, what that could have meant. I was trying to track it through my viewing as, like, when her hair is more elaborate, is she feeling more confident in herself versus, because, like, she has this, like, quote-unquote messy bun pretty early, but it's, like, what some women will pay hundreds of dollars for their wedding.
Yeah.
For their hair to look like that. Like, it was a quote-unquote messy bun, but it was, like, every strand was perfectly laid. And I'm like, I don't know if that's just movie hair being so beautifully movie hair that I'm, like, just noting it, or... it. But at some points, her hair was so fucking elaborate that I was like, there's cannot be, like, not a note towards something. I don't know. But and then sometimes her hair looked like shit. Towards the end, she fucking looked like shit.
Oh, yeah.
So it had to be on purpose. I don't know. That was one thing that kind of bugged me. But the whole, there were every little sort of thing, like him getting sick. So Ed Harris getting sick in the beginning when they first gaslight her. Like, he comes and him and Javier Bardem seem to have this little like you and I thing that she feels outside of. which is such a specific emotion that I think it is so interesting to capture, of like that you as an audience also feel on the outside with her, that there's this thing that they're have this social understanding and she's on the outside of it, and she can't say to him like, why are you doing this, because he's being like polite and he's being socially, you know, oh, I'm letting this guy in, and but secretly she's trying to whisper, and he's like, no, I'm being polite, and she like gaslit, she literally feels gaslit. And I think that sort of like social otherness is really maintained very well throughout this movie, because I think that that's something a lot of viewers can relate with.
Absolutely.
Like feeling like you're not on the inside, even of just like a conversation or something, which, just like a specific, that's such a specific like emotion and feeling to capture so well. But when he's like getting sick, right? And and he's like, Javier Bardem's like covering him up. It's his side. And that was one thing I was like, what is that? And I was like Googling afterwards before we did this. And that's his rib. His rib is getting taken out because it's becoming Eve. Adam's rib gets turned into Eve. He gets sick. He's got this big wound on his side. The next day, his wife shows up. Like that's so clever and subtle. And I didn't pick up on it. I had to fucking read about it in like a little recap article. I don't know.
Yeah, and Eve shows up, and oh my god,
oh my god, is it Miss Baltimore Crabs?
Dude, Michelle Pfeiffer played such a cunt so insanely well, which I think was such like an interesting take of making Eve a bitch. Which is like, just, that also says something too of like, that is the first woman, basically, which like
cunt.
Yeah. And like obviously like making her like the seductress, and like that being sort of like women's role and everything like that, through like, or at least seen through like the patriarchy and all that shit. Because she's literally sitting there telling Jennifer Lawrence, she's like, honey, he's not gonna fuck you in those granny panties, and pulls out her lime green thong.
I wanted that lime green thong to come back into the storyline so bad, because Jennifer Lawrence, when she's flipping the laundry, she takes it and she like kind of slingshots it behind the machine to give a little like fuck you, which I kind of liked. But I was like, oh, I wanted that to genuinely, at the very end when she picked up the lighter, I wanted her to reach behind the machine and pick up the fucking thong and use it as like the light, the ignition, you know, the thing that's oh my god, that would have been so good. But that scene when they're doing the laundry is like one that sticks out to me the most in this whole movie, of like, you know, you're allowing her into your home and she's giving you all of this like unasked for advice, all of this like, oh, like unprompted like social introspection.
Yeah, she's like the epitome of entitlement.
Like, and she like
movie.
Thinks she's doing you a favor, you know, and you're talking to somebody and they're being an asshole and you're like, oh, they think they're doing me a favor by like telling me how it is, but like, I know how it is. You're just being a dick. Like like people who are like, oh, I'm just like brutally honest. I just am like, I'll tell it to you straight. But I'm like, no, you're just an asshole.
And then like throughout the entire movie, like what ends up happening is Michelle Pfeiffer gets murdered in Jennifer Lawrence's house. And then, like, sort of ends up, like, giving her the stink eye for the rest of the movie. Like, girly pop, that's your own family problems. Keep that away from my mother.
I was really thinking about singing the O'Reilly Auto Parts theme song to intro you this week, Jen, because it's stuck in my head, but I don't know if that's trademarked. And I'm, like, not trying to get a cease and desist or anything from Mr. O'Reilly. But so I'll just say this. Welcome. Here you are for another Chocolate or Vanilla interim podcast segment. This is my mother, Jen. She is lovely. She comes on about halfway through the show, and she just says two things. We all say which one we like better. It's a hoot, it's a holler, it's a romp, and sometimes there's a theme. Is there one this week, Jen?
There is no theme. It's just random.
Yes!
These are my favorites. And it might be a lot of food, because I'm pretty hungry right now.
Yes!
Nice.
I think we get our most controversial with the food opinions on this show. I love it.
That's my favorite.
I think that's when we fight the most as a group.
Nice. So, well, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Vanilla.
Chocolate? Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry?
Chocolate.
Vanilla.
Chocolate. First one, mango or avocado?
Is there a reason that you're pitting these two queens against each other?
Just
random.
Is it the way you cut them?
Yeah, it's the scooping, right? I guess I'll say avocado. I've never ate a mango like straight up. Like I always have mango is either like in a salsa or in like a in a dish of some sort. I've never straight up ate just raw dogged a mango, so I don't really think I can. On the basis of that alone, I cannot choose it. I like a little avocado.
You asked this at the right time, Jen, because I'm re-entering my like avocado stage. I don't know if anyone else has this, but like I'll go like 6 months, 9 months, maybe sometimes more without buying an avocado because I don't want to pay $1.69 per avocado. But I'm back. I'm back at it. I'm willing to spend the money.
Do you know the grocery code off the top of your head for Haas avocado?
4225.
Hell yeah. I did self-checkout today, and I didn't even have to look at it. Bananas and avocados, those are the two that will stick with me for life.
Yep. 4011 for a banana.
Mm-hmm.
I know the SKU off an ice bag. 7433400050.
Oh, that's a long one.
From working from a package store. I love that. I would put it in instead of reaching in to grab the bag of ice. But
nice.
Mm-hmm. But, next one is snow or rain?
Rain. Although the global warming kind of scares me because we live in a place that typically is like has very harsh winters for the most part. Hardly any snow this winter. It feels so weird. Nothing. But it is not my preference. I don't love the cold, and my love for winter sports does not outweigh my like discomfort of being cold. But I love to like make a night of like it's rainy, so I have an excuse to like eat a high calorie meal and watch a movie for some reason. Like, ooh, because I need to be cozy. It's raining.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you there, Dara. I am 100% in agreement with that. I don't have good circulation in my toes, so the snow really fucks that up. So I'll go with the rain.
You have numb toes? I didn't even know that about you.
I have really cold toes.
I am gonna go with snow. I love a good snowstorm. I hate driving in the snow though. Yeah. Next one is a nice quiet Italian restaurant or a super loud Mexican restaurant.
I feel like is this like cultural stereotypes here, or is it just like you are just? I feel like
I was just the two vibes, just the two different vibes.
No, I know what she's talking about because I got tacos recently, and it was like a nice looking like quaint like low light place. It was still banging. It was hopping.
Like even the food is loud. The fajitas come out sizzling. You can hear people yelling in the kitchen. It's awesome.
So true. I don't really mind like volume in a restaurant per se because you're just like kind of there to eat anyways. So it doesn't really matter. And I think if you're going out, you want to go out for Mexican because you can maybe get something that you can't make at home.
Yeah.
My big thing with Italian food going out for it is I'm like, most of the time it's fucking pasta, bro. Like,
I could do it myself.
I can do that at home. Some Mexican stuff, like, no, I do not have the capability and access to ingredients and equipment to do that on my own. So I guess I'll go with a Mexican. Also, typically, I think better drinks at a Mexican restaurant than an Italian.
Absolutely better drinks. Italian's just wine or a sangria. Again, I could do that at home. I just have to open a bottle.
It's so much cheaper.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna agree with you on Mexican. Like, I had a taco with fried avocado on it.
Ooh,
I'm not doing that at my house. You know what I mean? I'm definitely on board with you for Mexican.
Yeah, let's all go to Mexican for the sweep, definitely.
Whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, next one, reality TV or true crime?
Reality TV. I think there's like a weird cultural shift that's been happening lately about true crime where people are like getting a little bit too into it to the point where they aren't like talking about it as if those are real people and like, oh my God, Jeffrey Dahmer, slay. And I'm like Ew. That's a real thing that happened. Well, like not necessarily glorifying Jeffrey Dahmer, but just talking about like true crime stuff as if it's like a fun fictional thing, especially now with like a lot of the like dramatization TV remakes. Where like you need to remember that like people like are dead, so like maybe talk about it with a little bit of like
respect.
I don't know, just or just like put some thought into it before.
The sexualization of like serial killers has been like really gross in the last couple of years. Yeah,
especially like somebody bought Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses at an auction for like $100,000 or something like that, and I'm like, bro, can you donate that money to like the families of the victims or something? Like, fucking please.
Seriously.
But so I'll pick for that reason. I love trashy reality TV, Jen. It is one of the bonds that you and I have. Mother and daughter, we love bad reality TV together, and I don't apologize for it. I don't feel guilty about it. It's not a guilty pleasure because who cares?
I'm totally on board with you there. I was never a true crime girly, and I'm particular about the trashy reality shows that I watch, but I will get really fucking into them. So I'm going reality TV.
I'm picking reality TV every day, all day. I would probably have picked reality TV over the avocados we talked about earlier. Okay, next one is whole milk, 2% milk, skim milk.
I guess I'll just go with whole, I think if you're going to do the milk thing, just run it. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Also, I think when I buy cheese, I always buy, I don't buy that low moisture part skim bullshit. Nah, just get the whole milk. If you're going to do dairy, do dairy.
I grew up on 2%, so I'm going to choose group 2%.
I will also go 2%. I'll kind of split it down the middle.
Yeah. I'm not a skim girly.
Can I ask, what's the difference between 2% and skim?
There's 2%, 1%. Skim is 0. Yeah, it's like 0.
Well, if it's 0% milk,
no, 0%
where's
fat.
the milk?
Yeah, they skim it off the top and all that shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's why it's called skim.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in the morning, I just need a cup of coffee with any kind of milk in it. I can't drink it black, but I do not care what kind of milk is in it, as long as I get 1 cup of coffee in the morning.
I can't say I agree with you there, Jen.
Next one is spin class or running on a treadmill.
I am not a runner. I can't do the running. Also, Jen is smirking because Jen and I think Jen is going because her coworker and friend roped her into it, and then Jen roped me into it so that we could be bad at it together, basically. So we've been going to spin, and that shit just hurts your
for days.
Vagina. Just it's painful, but I would rather do that than run. I'd rather get my cunt punted than have to run. So,
I love a bike, but I've never been to a spin class, and I like to do my own pace for things.
I will go with spin class because we are having fun going every Thursday night.
Fun is an exaggeration.
I was going to say, fun is kind of yourself.
Strong. You ran track in high school, right?
Yes, I did.
Next one is a restaurant that has many variations of one thing, like a burger bar, like the Fix, or a restaurant that has a huge mix of everything, like Cheesecake Factory.
So I don't trust that. You should not trust a restaurant with too big of a menu. I mean, hey, I love the Cheesecake Factory even more than the next gal, but I know it's bad, and thankfully I've been able to whittle down. I think Emily has an anecdote about how they went with a group of friends, right? And some people, their meals were great and some were awful. Yeah. Because that's why you just shouldn't have a menu that big. Yep. It cannot all be good. Mm-hmm. So I do think I way respect a restaurant that can do one thing, varied or not. I'd rather have a restaurant with a less than a 5-thing menu than an over 50. That's too much.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Give me variety on one single thing. Have your shtick. I'm with that.
Yeah, me too. I want a restaurant with a shtick too. I think a place that does chicken parm, I'm not going to order crab rangoons. Those.
Yeah. Hell no. Hell no.
Next one is a Hershey bar or Hershey Kiss.
Hershey Kiss.
I don't need that much Hershey chocolate in my life because it's just not very good. So I'll go with the Kiss.
Oh, I like the bar. I like to break it up into squares. I think a Hershey bar is OG. Next one is a cupcake or a slice of cake.
Slice of cake, because I am not a big frosting person, and I like my frosting ratio to be obviously more cake than frosting. And I feel like cupcakes in recent times have just evolved where it has to be this elaborate decorative display of something where there's just a fuck ton of frosting. It's 1-to-1, cupcake to frosting, and I just can't do it.
I totally agree with you there, and I also feel like a cake usually ends up being a lot more moist than a cupcake. So I'm gonna go for the cake.
I'm gonna go cupcake. I like to take a cupcake and rip the bottom off and put it on the top and make a sandwich. And then you can scoop out the excess frosting. Next one is for your coffee. Light roast, medium roast, dark roast.
Light roast. Pretty controversially, Henry worked in coffee places for a really long time. He worked both at Starbucks and at like a local brewery place. And everyone was always like, why do you prefer the light roast? That's fucked up. And Henry was like, I just don't like my coffee to taste burnt. Like, that's not my preference. And everyone always was like, oh, okay, you weirdo. But that, I guess, just like by association, I also have kind of learned to like light roast. But I guess in the coffee scene, it's like more controversial. Like, I guess the dark roasts are, more complex. But then again, I like boxed wine. So maybe I'm just a simple bitch.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also like if he worked at Starbucks, I bet the dark roast tasted like ass.
Yeah.
Like cigarettes, like raw cigarettes.
Yeah. Yeah. But like a good dark roast, I can understand. A light roast, isn't it also like a light roast has the more caffeine and everything like that? It's like inverse. You would think dark has the most caffeine, but it's like the lighter it is. It has more caffeine, I think.
I didn't know that.
Maybe.
I could be talking out of my ass here. But I'm going to go safe route. I'm going to say medium roast because I do like a good bit of like that coffee flavor, but I also like to be buzzing.
I'm going to go dark roast, and I do think Henry is like the enigma that every other thing he likes like bold flavors. He always picks the strongest flavor of something, except for his coffee, where he goes light roast. Last one, soup and salad or soup and sandwich?
Soup and a sandwich. If I get the choice for bread or no bread, I'm picking bread. And also, if it's a compatible soup and sandwich and I can do a little dippy, ugh.
Yeah, soup and a sandwich. Easily. No questions asked.
Yeah, same. A good half sandwich and a thing of soup. So that is it for random. I'm pretty hungry, chocolate or vanilla.
Slay. Well, thank you, Jen. As always, we appreciate your presence. These will be posted on our Instagram probably the day this episode comes out. So if you're listening day of, go check that out. Vote for your favorites. And Jen, we'll see you next week.
All right. I love you guys. Have an awesome week.
There's not a lot of funny parts in this movie. There's like maybe 2 off the dome that I can name. And it's Kristen Wiig just massacring people with like just that Kristen Wiig like tone of voice. But there's this like basically this sort of turning point around the end of the first act, I think, or the middle of the second act, kind of, where Jennifer Lawrence is like pissed with Javier Bardem, like, these people are ruining our house, like, I don't know what you're doing, like, what the fuck. And basically she like calls him out. She's like, you won't even fuck me or whatever. And immediately he goes in. That man has a degradation kink. Like, for sure. But it was, what is it? The next morning that they wake up in bed together and Jennifer Lawrence just turns around and looks at him and she goes, I'm pregnant. And I was in there, I'm like, what? Girly pop, how do you know? Like, you're basically telling him that you nutted in me so viciously last night that there's no other option. I'm pregnant.
Yeah, honestly, like, a test would not have even turned up positive in that state because, like, her hormones had not turned the tide. Ooh, impossible.
Yeah, what is it? I think you said the egg is still trying to, or the sperm is still trying to find its way to the egg, like.
Right? Like, no way. But I think it's funny that you said those are the only 2 funny moments because I'm not gonna lie, I laughed when they ate the baby. It was just so jarring that I was like,
it's like one of those inappropriate giggles. Like one of those.
And I gotta say, not to, give myself credit, but I did jokingly say, like, oh, is he gonna eat the baby?
You did,
you gave me a side eye, and I was like, oh no, he's gonna eat the baby. Because basically, after Jennifer Lawrence has the baby, Javier Bardem is like, I want to hold it. And she's like, no. And she's like, she's like, I need to hold it. And he's like being really pushy. And I'm like, oh, it's because he wants to eat it. so funny.
Oh
But
my
that
God.
that actual scene of them eating the baby is not funny. Like,
No.
I let out a little chuckle, but it's not funny. It's a
No,
lot.
it's really unsettling. Like, also, they got one of those, like, fresh out the womb babies for this one. That was a good baby for this movie. But, like, at the same time, imagine being the baby actor for this movie, and you watch this, like, years later, and your dad's like, hey, look, that's you.
I mean, this kid probably watches it when they're like 10 because it's on their resume, and they've like, I've got to talk about this in interviews, so I've got to remember that I like was present in the moment. So I bet some like poor overworked 10-year-old child actor has to be like, yeah, Mother was a really challenging role for me.
Can infants put, like, work like that on their resume, though? Can you do
I'm
that?
sure they fucking can. The Gerber baby, I'm sure whoever is the Gerber baby has that at the top of their list. Yeah, I'm sure. If
Yeah.
you're a fun fact that I was like pretty astounded by, but like, yeah, I guess that makes sense, is that when they get babies in movies, they get preemies.
Yeah.
So if you have a super duper preemie, and then so they're old enough, because you don't want your freshly born baby to be acting because that's not like safe or anything. But if you have a 6-month-old that looks fresh born because it was so premature, that's like pretty prime for baby acting. So they like scout out like super duper preemie babies that then will be, you know, between 6 months and a year, who can like handle, you know, being held and being on movie sets and stuff like that, who look freshly born, which, yeah, I guess they did a good job with this one. But you mentioned, you're like, oh, it's kind of cute. And I was like kind of noting, and I felt like they switched baby actors a few times. I'm like, that looks like a different one.
Wouldn't shock me. Would not shock me in the slightest. Because, I mean, it's like a whole thing of, like a child can only be, like, working for so long. I'm sure, like, it's the same thing for a baby. Like,
Let's be honest.
Like, a 5-minute scene with a baby is probably, like, a 2-hour-long process. And, like, that baby has, like, 20 minutes tops.
Let's be honest, you and I only know this because of Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal.
Not me, but...
No? Oh my god, there's this crazy HBO show where basically they establish that child actors can't work longer than like a certain number of hours. So they're trying to do a real life simulation of a household setting. So they have to swap the child actors out every like 3 hours or whatever. So they're like, oh, we're pretending that we're raising a 6-year-old, but it's like it's a different kid every 3 hours because the child actors can't be booked more than 3 hours at a time. Wow. I can't believe you haven't seen that show. It's amazing.
You've told me about it too, but I don't know. Nathan Fielder, I think, is just not quite in my pocket.
You don't like cringe.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't like to cringe. I like to cringe, which is one of our separation things.
Yeah.
We don't quite see eye to eye on the cringe factor.
No, can't say we do. I want to bring up, you asked me, you prefaced this before we started recording. I want to get into this little segment that you threw at me. Religious-based.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I saw this really great TikTok where it was basically somebody saying, like, what's your go-to icebreaker question, party question, which is, like, a great open-ended question for people to then, you know, TikTok, that's the point, duet it. And this so clever person, I wish I had saved this so that I could, you know, say what their at is, but I don't remember. But they said that they love at parties to say, if they were going to base a religion off of you as an individual, as they did Jesus, what would be the body and blood of you? So it's like, you know, the body and blood of Christ is bread or like little wafer crackers, whatever, and wine. Red wine. So that's like, you know, the body and the blood of Jesus Christ. They're doing an Emily religion, a Dara religion, you know, insert you here religion. What in church do they serve as the body and blood of you? I thought that was so funny and clever. And I texted you and I was like, I prefaced, I'm like, I'm going to ask you this.
So immediately off the bat, I knew what my blood was. And not just because of what it looks like, but I think that anyone that knows me, I mean, particularly my roommates, because they know how deep this runs in my life and how central of a part it is, it's tomato soup. It's specifically the Trader Joe's boxed tomato soup. That is my blood. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I probably eat enough of it that it has made its way into mine. But at the same time, it's tough because I'm always eating my little tomato soup with like some sort of bread. I don't want to jump on like the Jesus train, but I'm gonna say a crostini. I'm gonna do a little crostini with a little Parmesan on top of it, and that's gonna be my body. And then you just go and the churchman, the big churchman at my my big church, just holds the bowl of tomato soup, and you have your crostini, and you go and you give it a dip and you eat it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is like my like go-to comfort meal. So it's what works for me.
Do you do the go-to when you want a fucked up grilled cheese, when you're like, I'm not just making a grilled cheese, I'm making like a grilled cheese that you put a little cheese on the outside of the bread as well?
I haven't done that.
So
I'll usually go and I'll make the grilled cheese, and I'll put a little grilled cheese on top of a little cheese on top of the soup, so I get like more cheese.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say though, personally, when I want my grilled cheese extra cheesy, you just do your standard, a good hearty bread, whatever cheese fillings. You butter both of your sides, but you also grate a little Parmesan, I think is the perfect cheese, that it doesn't melt so fast it gets burnt. Like, it's a harder cheese, so it takes a minute to melt. So it also, while your inner cheese is melting, it's a good, time ratio. Yeah. But basically, you get a nice crusty, almost not burnt, but like a nice crispy cheese layer.
Yeah, I love a crispy cheese.
Embedded in your bread as well, especially if you're doing the dipping.
Yeah,
because you do that, then you cut it up and you just dip. Oh, I love to almost like cut it up like croutons and just fucking get it in there in the soup.
Love that. Yeah, no, that's my shit. I'll actually, if I'm making my grilled cheese slutty, I will usually have, I usually keep like a jar of like confit garlic on hand.
Oh.
So I'll go and I'll hit my bread with like some of that beforehand, and then put the cheese on it and smush that in between. Get real hot with it. But I really would love to know what your body and blood is.
So pretty similarly, I think I went like full picture. I'm not picking a this and that. I'm doing a cohesive meal situation.
Yeah, and like what your truth is, right?
Yeah, where I started as well with my blood, and I'm like, what's my favorite thing in the world? And that's an egg yolk, and like a yolky egg. So my blood is a hollandaise sauce.
Oh, God.
And then, of course, like if you're getting a hollandaise sauce, what's the body? If I'm allowed to have two things, it's obviously a little English muffin with a piece of ham, so that our whole thing can be an Eggs Benedict situation. Yeah. But if it has to be just a crisped up, nice little piece of Canadian bacon that you then just get in your little, you get your hollandaise, a shot of hollandaise, and a little nice crispy bacon or ham or what have you.
Tell you what,
I think,
I'm shitting after I go to your church.
You best be sure. I also asked Henry this question, and he took a minute. He waffled between a few ideas, but he was like, I just think my body is a Cool Ranch Dorito.
That sounds right for him.
And he said, and my blood is sour cream, and you just dip the chip into the dip, and that's me. And I felt, that's for sure.
That one's really wavering on if it's I guess that could be your blood. It's like really in between solid, you know what I mean? Like, as long as the sour cream has like the little bit of juice that, when like you take out sour cream,
lime juice?
No, it hasn't been mixed yet, so you have like that weird watery part of the sour cream.
Not to call out Jen, but growing up, I learned by watching my parents that little water bit you dump in the sink, which is not true.
Not true.
You mix it in. You mix that watery bit in, and that's what gets it to a good texture. But I grew up learning that or like the water on the top of anything, you dump it.
You must have had some thick sauces.
Not okay. But yeah, comment and DM us on our post for this week of our faces photoshopped onto the Mother poster. Tell us what you think your body and blood would be. I'd like to hear some responses or DM them to us or whatever. I would love to hear some creative answers for this because immediately my mind went to like, oh, like cheap wine and like extra toasty Cheez-It. But I'm like, that's too close to Jesus. I'm like, I can't be piggybacking off of Jesus. You know, I gotta do my own thing.
I could see you as a mule.
Moscow Mule. Yeah. That is my my go-to cocktail.
Yeah. Do we want to get into the regularly scheduled programming?
Yes, slay. I would love to do that with you. Fuck, marry, kill. I think that there is like this is tough because there's a definitive two main characters of like Mother and God. Whereas like who is our third? You know, it's kind of tough. So do we want to do a fuck, marry, kill fight with Jennifer Lawrence, Javier Bardem, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Ed Harris?
Yes. I'm gonna marry Mother, obviously. Mm-hmm. She needs a partner that actually loves and respects her, and that is not Javier Bardem. I'm gonna fight Javier Bardem, because I mean, for obvious reasons. Also, this feels a lot like that scene in Fleabag where she's at the therapist's office and she's sitting there and she's like, do you want to fuck a priest or do you want to fuck God? You know what
True.
I mean? But yeah, I'm gonna fight Javier Bardem because he treats Mother Earth just so poorly. I'm gonna kill Ed Harris because he's already on his way out. You know what I mean? Like I'm not worried. And then obviously I'm gonna fuck Michelle Pfeiffer. Easy. What about you?
Yeah, it's tough because I don't think a ton of these characters come off as very like likable or like even humane. Yeah. So it is tough to like who do I give the good ones to? But I guess I also would agree with you, Mary Mother. I would love her little HGTV fixer-upper attitude. Yeah. Like she just wants the best for that house, and I think that this.
No, she's fixing up the house, and I'm cooking her like a beautiful meal.
Exactly. It could be lovely. And I just think like this story is just like when your partner's an extrovert and you're an introvert and they're like, no, we're gonna have a party, and you're like, no, but I'm gonna want to kill myself.
Yeah, like, really?
Like when they're like, no, more people can come over, and you're like, oh, but I just want to make sure that like the walls get painted the right color. So I felt for her when you're like in an overly social situation, when nobody would listen to her, when they're like sitting on shit and she's like, get down. That is my literal worst fear. It's like people being in my home and not listening to me. Oh, what an acute and specific fear that I related to.
Well, no, that's the most horrifying thing about this movie is not being listened to.
Right? Yeah. Nobody listens to women. That's actually the moral of the film. Especially nobody listens to pregnant women. Even more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna marry Mother Jennifer Lawrence just to make sure that gets done right. I'm gonna fuck Ed Harris. No, I'm changing my mind. No, I'm gonna fuck Javier Bardem. I want to fuck Ed Harris, but I want to fuck Javier Bardem even more.
Yeah.
And I want to get that like I want to give that like I'm gonna insult you, so you're gonna try harder kind of sex.
Yeah, because I think he clearly was like really rocking with that.
I want to fight Michelle Pfeiffer. She was a fucking cunt in this movie.
She was a total cunt.
Every time she spoke, I'm like, I want to bitch slap you. Like, she was such a dick.
But like, give me 2 of those boozy lemonades that she was making too, and I think I would be okay.
I'd be sitting on the front porch bitching about our husbands with her, I guess. Yeah. But no, I wanted to fight her. She was a cunt.
I was like, she like physically got me angry.
And then I guess I'll just kill Ed Harris as well. Who cares?
Yeah. I feel like there's not really anyone else for the entire movie, so
a ton of them like have like these weird names, which again you would never know unless you're like pulling up the IMDb or like doing the closed captioning. It's like cupbearer, like oathbringer, like all these weird names which they are never spoken. They're just like in the titles. But one of them was like the actors. We pulled up like the IMDb like little facts that come up on Amazon or whatever. And the actor, they're like, oh, actors in this scene. And it pulls it down. And the actor's name was Grits Crazy Boy. That sent me. Grits with a Z. Gritz. Crazy Boy, all one word. Grits Crazy Boy plays some devoted apostle. in this movie, and I was like, that is sending me that this man who's like refuses to get off of the counter, the unsupported counter, is named Grits Crazy Boy. Shouts at him. Put him in more stuff.
Yeah. And what are you gonna eat and drink for this movie? I'm kind of just gonna riff off of what I said would be my body and blood, because this movie is unsettling, and I want to eat a comforting food while I watch it. So I'm gonna tell you to do like either like a tomato soup with whatever sort of bread is your preference, and then a drink. I mean, honestly, that's a tough one. Maybe champagne. I don't know, like, what goes with tomato soup? Whiskey?
Oh no, that's too heavy. It's like a heavy meal. Yeah, I feel like maybe you just want
like a little champagne. You actually just double up and you have a Bloody Mary. So you're just drinking 2 tomato soups.
That's gross.
Yeah, actually, like a vodka spritzer or something like that. Like a really, like a really light, like just put your liquor of choice in with a seltzer and some lime or whatever.
I think you could put something yellow in it to make it like her little powder drink.
True, very true, very true. Yeah, I like that. What about you?
So I think that like very much like this movie is a clear, heavy-handed metaphor about the Bible. You could do some biblical food and drink to go with this. So you could eat some lamb. For the Lamb of God. Also, it's like they eat the baby, and I was trying to come up with some like Baby Bell cheese. No.
Oh God.
Like some. I was trying to come up with a little baby thing, but that's not okay, and I don't think that that's what you want. But so I think you could have like a nice little like lamb lollipops. You do like a beautifully roasted like little rack of lamb lollipops, and I know it usually goes with mint jelly, but that's not my personal preference. So I say you do an apple jam. So you do like a spiced apple for like the apple in the Garden of Eden. We're
this is
doing
really
that.
Good, Dara. I like this.
Thank you. So you do like a little like spiced apple jam on your lamb lollipop, and you do like a nice little biblical moment. Maybe some arugula in there to be like the pastures or something. I don't know.
The Garden of Eden.
You could really get creative with it. Yeah. I think. Also, you could do something with rock candy. I think to make that like little what's supposed to be like her soul that gets shattered. That's tough though, because
you could do that with a drink.
Doesn't melt. But my idea for a drink was super basic. Again, if we're doing our little religious meal, you do a religious drink, you have some wine. That's easy.
Fair
you do
enough.
a Jesus. We're doing a Jesus thing. We're having wine. Duh.
And what are you gonna follow this movie up with at your little Jesus themed party?
So I got this. I will credit it to a Letterboxd reviewer. I did not think of this, but they commented in like, just like The Truman Show, another movie where Ed Harris is being a menace, and I really loved that. So you transition from Ed Harris being a complete menace, showing up quote unquote uninvited in this film, to him completely running the show and sort of being God. He's kind of a godlike figure in The Truman Show, I would say. So you sort of shift from like the Adam figure to the God figure, and you watch The Truman Show, which is also just a great movie that I am always in the mood to watch. So you did The Truman Show after this, I think.
Yeah, I like that. As much as like this movie was based around the idea of mother, you don't get to see any relationship that she has with any sort of child. So I'm gonna go ahead. I have 2 options for you. If you want to keep on the kind of sad and depressing train, you can watch Xavier Dolan's Mommy, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful movie. Or if you kind of want to mellow it out, I think that you watch Postcards from the Edge, which is not particularly about a mother-daughter relationship, but it is one of the main themes, and it's Shirley MacLaine and Meryl Streep, and it's based off of Carrie Fisher's own, like, autobiographical novel, so, I mean, and I just personally like it a lot, so.
Interesting. I haven't seen or even heard of either of those movies, so I'll have to give them a look. Yeah.
And wow. What are you gonna rate this movie?
Oh, so I was so pleasantly surprised, and truly, I think any movie that once I finish it, I immediately am like, oh, I want to watch that again. is a 7 and up. Like, that's minimum. If that movie gives me a feeling that way, it's got to be better than a 7. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I can see where some of the criticisms, like, it was a lot at some point. I think the pacing is like very like ramping up like almost violently, which can be I certainly was in like a fine headspace to watch it, but I think if I maybe had watched it like in a different mood, I maybe would not have liked it as much. But as a first viewing, it really definitely shocked me, and honestly made me really want to dive into this director's discography, because I have never seen Requiem for a Dream. I've never seen Black Swan. I've never seen Pi. I've never, like, I was looking at everything he's done. I'm like, wow, these are like really notable works that I have never seen. So maybe I would really like them. So definitely gonna have to get into Darren Aronofsky, sort of see if I am feeling out more of his stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I really liked it.
Yeah, awesome. I love this movie. I think it's an incredible film. I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I like it a lot.
Ooh.
I as much as like religion isn't my thing, I definitely do love like the storytelling and like the re-storytelling of it and everything like that. And I just thought this was just a really creative and really interesting way of doing it, and I liked it a lot. And I thought the cast was amazing. I thought the writing was fantastic. I didn't have a problem with the pacing because I did feel like it was a continual incline for me, which I liked a lot. 9.5.
I am happy that you showed it to me. That's for sure. But I think this was a great way to celebrate our 2-year anniversary with you changing my mind about something that I felt, somewhat strongly about. Opinions can be changed, and that's what we advocate here for on The Swamp. And we are so happy that all of you have stuck around this long. We have some new merch. I posted about it on our Instagram pretty recently, but we have some new merch. We have like wine tumblers, which is so fun with our podcast logo. I also dropped some Pearl themed merch, tote bags and stickers. But as always, let us know what you would like to see. And more importantly, we were recently guests on a great podcast called You've Got to See This. They were on our Paddington episode not too long ago, and they invited us back. They're so great. And they had us on, and we talked about the movie Before Sunrise, which we certainly had some differing opinions about, but it was a ton of fun to go on their show, and they are so great. And truly, I think if you're a fan of us, you'd be a fan of them.
Absolutely.
Very similar vibes and styles. They're just so great. So we'll post all of their links and stuff below, but you should totally check that out. See how we did as guests rather than as hosts. And obviously always trying to do, collabs in the future. We love working with other podcasts. So let us know who you would like to see us work with. If you have other movie podcasts that you're big fans of, drop it. Maybe we have more in common than we think. Maybe we can drop them a line. Who's to say? As we're rolling into 2 years, maybe we should get more serious about this. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, all of our links to our social media is also in the description. Go follow us there if you don't already. Please continue to send us your suggestions for month themes, chocolate or vanillas, movie suggestions, and we are doing Freaky February, super big umbrella term. We are not doing Freaky Friday. We have established this, solidified. Don't tell us to do it. I can't think about it. Jamie Lee Curtis is, maybe you do want to hear us talk about how hot Jamie Lee Curtis is for an hour and a half, you sick fucks. So, keep that to yourself and wait for the Oscars. But yeah, also talk to us about your Oscar predictions and stuff. I'm a huge Oscar race chaser, so drop in if you want to chat with me about sort of your thoughts on the current Academy Awards run, because I'm all about that shit. And I'm rambling on, but I do want you all to know that we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for 2 years, and goodbye and good night.